Alright, so this is part 2 of the Endless Runner, the vertical one. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start coding it. So I already have the artwork. I got 2 layers here, background and player here. And we're just going to start making things happen. So there's a bunch of things we could do. Let's go ahead and we're going to start off with just making the movement work. Just making the character go from side to side here. Okay. So to do that, I gotta take the character here, and I've got to. I already did it. I need to add a. This should be blank. I wonder if it will go back to nothing. Yeah. So select your player, your symbol here, and I'm just gonna name it player for my instance name. This is how I'm going to interact with it in the code. Okay. You gotta make sure that's done. Go to Window, Actions. And you can see it's up here. I know I have 2 monitors, and you might too, so you could just put it in the other one, but I don't want to do that because then you can't see it. So I'm just going to grab this, and I'm just going to shove it over here. So now you can see it over there. I'm going to take this and shrink that a bit, and then take this and shrink. Oops, let's pull that back a touch in case I need that. Like that, and there we go. Okay, so now I got these 2, and I also did the same thing, but I put my code snippets down here. Okay, so I don't like to write code when I don't have to, so if you click on the code snippets, what we need to have happen is I want it that when I use my keys, my arrow keys, that it will move it left to right. So I'm going to go to timeline, or sorry, animation, underneath action script, animation, and we're going to do, can't see the move with keyboard arrows. Double click on that, and bam, it's going to make this code for you, which is pretty nice. Let me get rid of these comments section. So to kind of explain what's going on here, it has a couple event listeners, and what it's going to do is it's going to, on the stage, add an event listener for key down and key up. You see this here? And what is going to happen is if it senses a keyboard strike, so you push a button, it's going to run this one, this set key pressed, okay? And then it's going to say when that button's released, it's going to run, that's what key up is. It means you're releasing the key, like you're not pushing down anymore. It's going to run this function set that is unset key pressed, okay? Which is fine. That's good. That's okay. And then lastly, on every frame, so just continuously, like a loop, it's going to run move in direction of key, okay? So the idea here is that it says, okay, there's been a keyboard so let's start here. So it says, okay, so I got stage and it said, okay, I pushed down a keyboard, right? That's the listener. Then it's going to run this thing, the set key press, which is right down here. Then what it's going to do is it's going to say, it's going to make a switch, which is basically a conditional. We didn't really cover it in class, but the idea is it will test the number of scenarios. And what it's going to test is the key code, all right? And that's what got passed to it, this event key code. It's going to test this key code, and it's going to say, okay, if the key code is up, right? So keyboard.up, then it's going to say up pressed is true, and then it's going to break, which means it's going to say, okay, that's true. You don't have to read the rest of this. Just there you go. That happened. So it's just going to set this variable of up pressed, which is up here. It's by default it's off. It's false, okay? Because I'm not, when you first start the game, you're not pressing down the button. It's going to set that to true, right? And then it's going to say, okay, if this is, if the keyboard, the down arrow is pressed, it's going to say that's true. And if it's the left arrow is pressed, it's going to say that's true. And if it's the right, it's going to say that's true, okay? So it's going to turn on this. It's going to say this is a true event. Then we also have this here where it's going to say, okay, there's another listener that listens for when I release the button, all right, when I let go. And that's going to run the unset key pressed. And that's going to basically do the exact same thing, but the opposite. So it's going to see, it's going to listen for which one I'm letting go, and it's going to set them back to false, okay? Now, what that means is that as I push the keys down, it's going to set this variable up pressed and down pressed and left pressed on and off. So while I hold it down, they're going to be on, it's going to be true, and while I let go, it's going to be false. And then every frame, it's going to test that if these different things are true, then it's going to go ahead and move the player a certain amount. So it's going to say if up is currently true, so up pressed, because if whatever's in this parentheses is true, and in this case up pressed, which is up here, set by false, then go ahead and move the player up. And if it's if down is true, move it down, and so on and so forth. So basically, it sets up these three functions to test that. Okay, so and actually, if you go ahead and hit Control Enter, you'll see that you will be able to, in fact, make the thing move around, right? Which is kind of cool. Doesn't look super great, doesn't work super well, but it's, you know, it looks like he's running. Woo! All right, but it doesn't really work for what we need. We need to move some things, but it sets up that structure that I like. That will be helpful later on. Okay, so one thing I'm going to change is this function move in direction of key, because I'm going to use this. You know, actually, we will leave that. Yeah, I'm going to leave that. Okay. All right. So a couple of things I need to do. I don't need up and down. I'm just going to have it so our character can move left and right. We're not moving up and back or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this up pressed and remove that one. And I'm going to take the down pressed and remove that one. Okay. And now if I hit Control Enter, you'll see if I move up and down, it's not going to do anything. Okay. But left and right will. Now, just to make it cleaner, I could go through here and remove these as well, these cases of up and down. Maybe I guess we'll go ahead and do that just so that it's less code. Okay. But you could literally just leave those because it doesn't matter. And it's good to just every time you do anything, just test it to make sure that you don't have any errors. So everything's working good. Yeah, no issues. Okay. Yay. Okay, so we got that going. Now, I need to do a couple of things. I need to, for one, I don't like the speed that it's moving, and I also need this to happen. If you look, when I go to move this guy, left and right, if I go, oh, no, it's not, I think I'm not, there you go. You have to click in the window. You can see I can go right off screen, right? And I can go, I'm holding it down, and I can go off to the right. So what I need to do is I need to set like an artificial barrier, basically. So to do that, I'm going to select the guy here, and I'm looking at my properties panel. And I'm just going to hold shift and, okay, I'm going to say he can go this far, right? I think that's fair. That's basically where the end of the road is here. And I'm going to look at the position here. So if you look at the X, see that says 11? Yours will probably be different because yours is whatever. So 11 on the X in this direction, and then he can go all the way to 464, okay, in that direction. So I'll just put him back in the center. So you can go to 11 and 464. So I need to adjust that code there. So click on timeline, click on my actions. Okay. So what I'm going to do is inside my left press, I'm going to do another test. Okay. Because I don't want it to only be able to do that. So we're going to go if, and we're going to say player.x. Okay. If the X position of player is greater than, or I'm sorry, less than, and I think it was 11, right? 11. So if his thing, like this is 11, if he goes to 10, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do player.x. We're going to set it to the value of 11. Okay. And I'll go ahead and put this in braces. If it's only one line, you don't have to do braces, but just to keep, you know, good, whatever. That's fine. And then after that, I'm going to do an else. Okay, and we'll just do the same thing. I'll do a brace. I'm going to tab this in and do an end brace here. And the speed of it's moving kind of slow, so I'm going to go ahead and make it 15. So what this is saying, okay, if the player position is less than 11, so as it goes to the left here, the numbers get smaller. You probably noticed that. So if you go, you know, he goes all the way down here, he gets to 11. But then as soon as he gets to 10, if that's true, it's going to set it back to 11. So it never lets him go past it. And we just need to do the same thing for the right side. So again, I'm just going to do an if. And we're going to say player.x is greater than 464. We're going to say that the player.x is equal to 464. So in the same way, 464. In the same way, it won't allow it to do that. And then we'll do an else. And I'm just going to tab this in so that everything's nice and clean, and put my brace on here. And I'm just going to make it 15. You might need to adjust your numbers depending on. Let's go ahead and test that. Hitting Control or Command Enter. Alright, and if you look, you can see it won't let me. It's a little bit fuzzy, but it's fine. It won't let me go that way, and it won't let me go that way. So I'm totally stuck. Okay, but you can see now we have it going side to side, and that works pretty good. Alright. Yay. Alright. Now, another thing I'm going to do with this, just for the sake of making this work a little bit better, is this. I want to make this for mobile. Now, I don't know if you know this, but your phone doesn't have a key. I mean, it has that little keyboard, but it doesn't have a keyboard when you're playing games, right? So that doesn't really work. I still like this setup, and plus it lets me test it in here easily. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up 2 buttons, okay? That when you press one on the left or one on the left or on the right, it'll move the character left and right. All right, so we're going to make a couple of buttons here. So I'm going to go to my timeline here, and above the player, I'm going to make a new layer. Come on, new layer. And I'm just going to call this, I guess, buttons. Left, right buttons, we'll call it. Okay. And all I'm going to do is go to this, and we don't really need a stroke, and the color can just be black. I don't really care. I just need to, on the left, go like this, and it'd be better if this was perfectly halfway, but I don't know. Like that is one, and then let's just take this. Oops. Let's say Q. Sorry, Q. And if you hold Alt, it will. If I do this, it'll do it from the pivot. Watch, right? But if I hold Alt, it'll just do it from this side. So I'm just gonna try and pull that in a little bit closer. Okay. So I got that. That looks pretty good. And I'm gonna go ahead and copy it. Control C or Command C. And I'm just gonna go ahead and convert this to a symbol. So you can hit FA or you go Modify, Convert to Symbol, and we're gonna call this one left. Left button. Well, see, I'm redundant. Left underscore BTN. Okay, so that'll be our left button, and I gotta switch this to a button, not a movie clip. Okay, all the other things we made so far have been movie clips, and then we'll hit OK. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit Control Shift V. If you did hit Control V, it's gonna plop it wherever. If you hit Control Shift V, it's going to plop it where it already was. It's paste in place. If you hold Shift as I drag, I can slide it. There we go. And so I just hold Shift and drag it to the right here. And I'm just going to again convert this to a symbol, modify, convert to symbol, and I'm going to call this one right underscore BTN, and make sure it's also a button still. And we'll hit OK. Boom. Okay. So now I got 2 buttons. I'm going to open this one up, and you'll see that it's on up. Now you can see I can't see my thing. What I want to do is I'm going to take this and drag it to hit. So there's nothing on any of these but hit. All right, and if you remember, that's just the position that it will it'll read it as a hit, but it won't read it as you won't graphically see it. It'll just be the position, the area in which you can click in. Okay, and I'm gonna select this one, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'll open this up, and I'm gonna click and drag over to hit. All right, and back that up, and now you see I have these 2 that kind of overlap a little bit too, which is, let me pull this a little bit. Oops, gotta hold Alt when I do it. Pull this a little bit this way. Take this one, pull this one a little bit that way. Okay, good. So now I got 2 buttons on either side. And I just made the whole screen because originally I had done it just on the bottom left here, but then people kept clicking up here and it wasn't going left and right. So I'm gonna say you can click anywhere on the left or anywhere on the right side. It just makes it easier, I think, for playing. Okay, now what we got to do is we select this one and we need to give it a name. So I'm gonna call this one left underscore TAP tap. All right, so that way I know that one. Actually, let's just do it like this: left tap, like that. That will be my instance name of how I'm going to select it, and this one will be the opposite. This one will be right tap. So basically, you click on this one or this one, and it'll move it left and right. So now what I need to do is, I'm actually just going to go ahead and use a mouse click event, because this will work the same both on your, in here I can test it, and it will also work on a phone. So it'll automatically kind of convert it. So we don't need any of this. I need the event handlers, because you'll see there's these mobile touch ones, and this has a tap event, but I think it's better not to use that, because I can actually test this in here. Otherwise I have to keep exporting it out, and I already know this works. So we're going to go ahead and make a mouse click event. Double click on that, and you're going to see it makes this mouse click event. All right. Woohoo! So, now, this actually doesn't work by default. I have to do a couple of things. The problem with this, I need to do the same thing I did up here, where if you're holding down the key, it's on, but as soon as you let go, it's off. If you look at here, this is just mouse click. Which doesn't actually work for me, because that just means I click it. So I can have it that when I click it, it turns it on, but then he's going to keep going to the left, right? And I can have it click and then click again to go off or something, but it doesn't really work. So the actual event doesn't work for me. So these are like pre-made ones here. They're really common. So what I did is I literally just looked up like mouse events on Google, and then I just found a thing that had like a list of them. And they have one that I needed. So that's what you want to do. Just think like, oh, would they logically need this? And then look it up. So I'm on left tap here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to call this one mouse underscore down. All right. So originally I had tried it by hand, and like I had come up with some, but they were not the right ones. So, but just mouse down. So that's the event it's going to be listening for. So when you're holding it down, in this case, it'll also work if you're holding it down on the phone. And then it just has mouse click event handler. I'm not going to worry about renaming these. Usually it's a good idea. Let's go ahead and take this off. And all I want to do is I'm just going to change, I'm going to steal this little bit of code up here. So up here where it says keyboard left, this is if you're pressing down. It says keyboard left press true. That's what I want. Control C or Command C, depending on what you're using. So when I'm holding it down, when the mouse is down, it's going to run this event, and that's going to set it to true. I just need to do the exact opposite now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this whole thing, Control C or Command C, and we'll do Control V or Command V. So it's going to be left tap, blah, 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 mouse down, and then we're just going to call this one 0, 2. I'm just going to call this one up here just to keep things similar, 0, 1, and then make sure I change it here. 0, 1, because remember these two have to match, because this is what it's going to call. So those will be 0, 2 and 0, 2. It can't, the names have to be, unique, because otherwise it would call each other. And so this one, instead of mouse down, I want this one for mouse, you guessed it, up. Okay, so if mouse up, then it's going to say false. Okay. And I'm gonna test this real quick first, just to make sure everything's hunky-dory. And now you'll notice when I click on the left side here, it moves to the left. I didn't set up for the right yet. Okay. All right, great. And that will work on the phone as well. So I'm just gonna again take this whole chunk here and Control or Command C and Control V. And so this should be right tap, because that's what I named the other one. Right tap, and come on, move over. Okay, and I'm gonna want this to be, so I did 1, 2. This one will be 3, and 3, and this one will be 4, and 4. It would be better to make these like more unique names, but for right now I'm not too concerned. And instead of left here, I want it to turn on right press true, and right pressed false. So again, I'll just test this, Command or Control Enter, and you'll see if I click here or here, it will work. But I can also just use the arrow keys when I'm playing it, which works better for this. But if you're on a phone, this will actually be better. Okay, I mean, well, it's going to be required. And I just did it over the whole thing. All right, yay, that works good. It's probably a good idea to save this. So Control Shift S, and I'm just going to save this as not finished, but it's going to be. So you should probably save it at this point. And so what we got now is I've got the controller done. Okay, so now the character moves left and right, and it only goes so far, and it works for both keyboard and also the mouse, right? Or which will also be for mobile. Okay, so that works pretty good. And if you want to change anything in here, just feel free. You might want to adjust the speed in here. Obviously, yours is going to be a different distance. You might want to use different keys, like if you want to use A and D. You can even add those also in here. Just add another case, and then instead of left, you would just write A like that, and it works the same. Okay, and so we'll call that good. And in the next video, we'll start making we'll generate our things to come down, the obstacles.